All right, are we live?
I guess we're live.
Are we live? Yeah.
We are live.
Okay, just me. Just making sure. All right.
All right.
Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for joining us. My name's Darren Claypool. I'm an environment artist at ArenaNet.
My name's John Peters. I'm a game designer for Guild Wars 2.
And today we're going to be going through and showing you from concept to completion just what it takes to make a PvP map. So, should we proceed?
Yeah.
All right.
Darren's put together this very, very, very fancy PowerPoint that's right up here. So.
All right. So let's
go take a look.
Go ahead and start. We'll start off with pre-production. This is kind of where it all begins. So we've got here. Starts off with our initial meeting. We kind of start off getting the whole PvP team together and some systems team together, and they go through, and we kind of want to get an idea of what we're going to be creating. So it kind of starts off, any idea is up for consideration. For our PvP maps, since all of them have been Conquest before, we kind of wanted to start off with Conquest being the framework, and the secondary is really what we want to have that's going to kind of drive the ultimate design of the map.
So a lot of this meeting is talking about that and trying to figure out how that's going to make the map play, very differently than previous maps have.
Yeah. I mean, we do try to come up with multiple map ideas while we're working on this too. We don't want to come out with one idea. We want to keep it open. It's really good to have multiple maps in production, especially in this early stage. So, I mean, like I said, we're talking about the Skyhammer. We're going to be talking about the Skyhammer map. Internally, just in case I do reference it, internally we call the map Cannon. So I might be going back and forth with calling the map Skyhammer and Cannon. So just so you know what we're talking about if we say Cannon.
Yeah, and that's in case we do it with other maps too.
Yeah.
We tend to use like the name, so we'll try and when we say the wrong name by mistake, we'll try and explain to you the fancy lore name for that map.
Yeah, usually they don't get a name until near the end of the production of the map too.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is our initial meeting. So the idea that we had initially for Cannon, Skyhammer, that came out of it was a giant cannon that would do, in its initial inception, map-wide damage. It would be one blast, it wasn't going to be player controlled, and it would dominate the map. So after we do our initial meeting, next thing we go to is it gets back on my plate, and I start sketching up some possible layout ideas. Here's a couple of the early sketches that we had for Skyhammer. You can notice a lot of that plays down. The cannon is central for all this, so you'll notice that the cannon plays a big part with it. It's really
yeah, there you go.
Yes. So
follow
the cannon,
that cursor if you can see it.
The cannon is a central piece there. John, you had some
I
ideas.
was just going to say, like, one of the big things we try and do here too is if you think about the 3 cap point and 2 side red blue, there's a couple different layouts. There's that one up in the top there. Here, I'll make a little arrows or something to illustrate it. This is like the one where it's kind of like a triangle. And you can kind of see that similar pattern here. And sometimes we'll do a U shape. And if you look at all the maps, there's kind of a number of patterns you can get with that, where you have Faux Fire with the kind of diagonal across, or the kind of line across for Kylo. We kind of do the U on Niflheim.
Yeah.
And so a lot was, trying to focus on this triangle, as you can see, like to try and use that shape and get it, you get in there and it has that feel to it, and it has a different feel and a different sort of general layout.
And it's really important for us to be doing multiple sketches at this point. Usually your first idea isn't always the best, so we try to kind of talk it through. I'll be talking through with the designers, and we'll be going back and forth, coming up with a design before we actually take it any farther beyond this. Generally out of this, we'll kind of pick our strongest candidate. For our initial one, we kind of started with this one as being our strongest candidate. So after that, we kind of went in and started doing our first pass on the map. Again, this is still on my plate, so what I'm going to start off doing is I take that idea into Photoshop and create what we call a height map. And height map is a black and white image that our editor sees. So black is actually the lowest point on the map, and pure white would be the highest point on the map. So this is actually, right here, is the initial height map that I made for Skyhammer. Next thing after this, I take this and import it into our editor. And I got a comparison here. You can see just what they look like. So this is that height map image and how it compares here. This is where the cannon ultimately ended up being on this first pass. Over here, is where the cap points, and you can see right here corresponds with this. So it's really our first step into creating the map and getting it roughed in. Next, we're going to go through and rough it out in our editor some more. So here's a slightly farther along version. I'm starting to rough out the shapes with our editor, just with terrain at this point. We don't want to start bringing in any 3D models, or as we call them, props, into the game, because it's really just making it loose, working on choke points, getting the basic idea of the flow for the map. After that is kind of where I start bringing in some props, start roughing in. You can see I roughed in the cap point here. I started roughing in the cannon. One thing too, normally when we start a map, for a lot of our maps, we use what we call gray box props. Those are placeholder props that we never intend to make it into the game. For these gray box props, or for this map, we decided that we came out really strong out of the gates wanting to do an Asura theme map. So we decided we're just going to start off using Asura props for this.
Sort of makes sense that if you have a giant laser cannon that is on the map,
you'd want it to be Asura.
Yeah.
So after that, once we decided that, I started going through and just basically, I'm not making it look pretty at this point. It's just getting things in for, on a gameplay perspective, just getting things functional. One thing we were floating around initially in this, there's these little blue guys you can see here. We were going to have sniper nests up there. But that was ultimately something that never made it.
Yeah, and the blue guys are kind of cool because for like being able to see the map and not be in the game, they give you a good sense of like, this is the size of a person. Yeah. This is, how big a person's going to squeeze through these areas. And Darren doesn't really need that because he's made enough of these maps. He knows exactly how big the thing he's building. But for us, when we're looking at like, Darren's like, look at this. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a person. I can see I'm going to be able to block that off with a trap or whatever. So.
And it is really easy for us to just jump back and forth between our editor and in-game, so we can run around and just really see the scale quickly. So after this now, I started playing with the props a little bit more, started getting in some more choke points, added thoroughfares going through here, started adding in some staircases. We've got some over and under here. Just started fleshing it out some more.
So Darren, there's a good question.
Oh, editor, so yeah, that is a really good question.
There's a question from a user. I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly. Midgel96. What editor do you use?
So we actually use our own custom in-house editor called MapEdit. It's made for us by our awesome engine and tools team. They do amazing work. We wouldn't be able to do it without them.
And all of our tools actually are pretty much internal.
Yeah.
So when we talk about what we do to script this map, it's an internal tool as well.
Okay, and so here, this is what Skyhammer, the map that would become Skyhammer, ultimately looked like on its first pass. You can see it looks a lot different from what it ended up in the final version. So at this point is really where the designer kind of takes over and they start scripting things up just so we can get a first pass on the map.
Yeah, so to talk about that a little bit, there's a map script that'll run. This is kind of general stuff that's running on the map, keeping track of overall stuff. You have to place in the objects, the capture points, set up the scripting on those and how they handle the players. Generally, we have a pretty core script for that we then use for all our capture points. They all function similarly right now. For the cannon, there's kind of setting up how the cannon is going to work, how often it's going to fire, what it does when it fires. In this particular case, when it was just kind of a global, the cannon fires on the map, it was more clear. Like it was a lot simpler to script. And as this map evolved, the scripting and the setup on the cannon became a little more complicated. Even the firing of the cannon, we have to go into our editor, build a skill object, and that skill has to fire at the right times.
I mean, the goal for this is really just to make the map playable at this point. We want to get in, we want to run around, we want to test it, we want to see if this is a map that we want to move forward with. An interesting thing about this map, this initial version was actually started and was being prototyped the same time that we were doing Temple of Silent Storm, or as we called it, its code name for us was Dojo. So at the time, we felt like this wasn't a strong enough idea to move forward, and so we decided we really were latching onto the Dojo idea for Temple of Silent Storm. So this is what Temple of Silent Storm looked like in its first pass. So this is the underground room in that map. Give you a quick thing here of what it ultimately ended up looking like in game. So we moved on to Silent Storm. After that, we started fresh with a brand new batch of prototype maps. And again, the Cannon map was in there. It was thrown in there. We didn't change the layout too much, but ultimately we decided to go with Spirit Watch, or as we called it in game, Spirit. This is what Spirit Watch looked like on its first iteration.
That's a very clever in-game internal name for us. We really thought a lot about coming up with that one. So.
Yeah, we really want to do a Norn theme for that, and here it is with how it looks in game today. So after we got done with Spirit Watch, we started the prototype process again. We had a whole new round of maps started up again, and we decided to go for round 2, or in this case, it would actually be round 3. But I wanted to start over again on the map, and because we really liked the idea of having one big giant cannon that you could fight over on the map. We really still wanted to play with that idea. Problem was, we weren't happy with the layout and the design. We were really having a hard time trying to figure out how to communicate how map-wide damage to players, how that's going to work between red and blue, how are you going to know that? So we decided ultimately to scrap that and kind of take the power of the cannon down a little bit. So started over again, generated a new height map, and took that into our editor. And this is what came out of our second version of Skyhammer.
There's obviously a lot of things that are like, this is much closer to
to
where it ended.
Like this. This area right here is really close to what it ultimately looked like at the end of the game. Initially, we had a room back here where the Asura Gate would go to, but we still had the idea that you would go through an Asura Gate here, you'd go up to the cannon, and we started playing a lot more. Like, we wanted to incorporate a lot of the things that we liked in Dojo or Temple Silent Storm and Spirit Watch. We really liked getting the verticality in there. We really wanted to put that into this map. So we added a lot of bridges and over and under, just to add a lot more variety to the map, made it much more fun to kind of just traverse the map. And as you can see, this area here, initially the B capture point, as it was going to be called later on, was much farther back because we had to accommodate for a room get there. A lot of times too, the map layouts will change. They'll get a little more compact, just to make the gameplay a little more dense. And here is actually the first version of what actually ultimately became the Skyhammer cannon area. At the time, I was calling it the soccer ball area, just because of what it looked like. But there were some issues with this layout that we ultimately had to shy away from. Just it was a small space to fight in. We had some issue with just the sheer amount of panels on here was an issue with fighting over as well.
Keep in mind, at this point, the panels did not shatter.
Yeah.
So it wasn't,
at that
soccer
point,
ball
they were
with
windows.
the whole floor shattering.
Yeah, at that point, they were windows. So out of this, we kind of came up with the idea that this is a strong map that we want to work with. We came up out of these play tests, of testing the map out, that this is a map that we want to take through to completion. So this actually is the funnest part for me, is going through and doing the art pass on the map. And when I start the art pass, one thing I really start looking at is the concept pieces. The real big advantage to working here at ArenaNet and having Guild Wars 2 and just the amazing concept artists we have is there is a ton of amazing concept pieces for us to pull from for inspiration. These are the two that I kind of were looking at that kind of just inspired me as I started on the map. This is an early concept piece for ultimately what would become Radasum, and this never actually made it into the game, but I always loved this piece, and so I always wanted to try and get this type of feel into the game. So went in there, and this is one of the things came out of just looking at those concepts. One thing that came out was just we really wanted to raise it up, put it up really high. So we lifted the whole things and put it up above the clouds.
Yeah, and that started to inform some stuff that we did, like on the design side too. Of, all right, once things were up there, you started to get the sense of like wanting to, with people falling off, you want to start to build the elements. That's where the jump pads came from. It's where the shattering panels came from. As you can see, like as we started to add them.
Yeah, initially the shattering panels, I put them in there because I thought they looked cool. And then our designer saw it, and he's like, oh, I see what these things can do. This could be a really cool mechanic that we could use for the map and really give it its own flavor.
Yeah, and actually for this map, these jump pads, like we saw all this verticality and all these overs and unders, and there were some staircase routes, but we kind of wanted to create this sense of like quicker ways to get up and down from these places, and kind of came up with the idea of the jump pads. And actually the jump pad concept came out of this map, and like the Super Adventure Box didn't exist yet. Dragon Arena didn't exist yet. Tequatl didn't exist yet. Like, this is where the jump pad idea actually came from, is Skyhammer map. And it kind of worked its way out of here into stuff that made it into the game, and then later Skyhammer released with it, which is kind of funny.
So this is kind of showing you, once we decided that we're going to have jump pads and the shattering panels, you can really see how much that changed the layout of the map. This is, I believe, the A point in the map. So this is what it looked like before we had that. It was really flat. There really wasn't a lot of gameplay. You'd run in, you'd fight over the point, and then you'd run away. But yeah, you can see we added jump pads here. We added this whole secondary area that you could get access up to, and then having the shatter paddles right around here. This is again showing you just how much the layout changed for the layout for the Skyhammer cannon. So again, there's the soccer ball design, and this ultimately, we really wanted to flatten it out and make it more of a flatter space for you to fight over. Then here I got a short video that I made kind of showing you, we recently went through and made some revisions to the Skyhammer area, and I did a quick video kind of showing you some of the processes that I went through when I was doing that. So go ahead and start it
yes,
up here.
Darren really is this fast.
Yeah, so one awesome thing about our editor is we can iterate really quickly. A lot of what will end up taking a lot is just fine-tuning it and polishing it, but it's really quick for us to get in and play with new ideas. So this is, we went through and took it from 4 panels down to 2 shattering panels. We just really felt like just having half as many panels really opened up the space and make it felt like it was a larger space to fight over. We also shifted the panels in between those 2 kind of side railings, just to make it a little more dangerous for when you are pushed onto those panels.
And this kind of shows off how cool our editor is. As Darren pointed out to me, this isn't like what he did when he just did this the first time. This is him redoing it to show it. So the hard part isn't always like, because Darren has used this and he's really good with this tool, like when we come up with a thing, he can do it quickly, but it's like, is this the right thing? Is normally the difficult part. So I think that's a good thing to see.
Is this a change that we want to make?
Right.
Is one of the questions we always ask ourselves, especially when we touch a map that's already live.
But this ability to change stuff this quickly kind of makes it so that we can decide that we can make a shot, take a shot at it, like, okay, this is a new version, play it, just save it off and play it, and then we can go back, and we can go back and forth and try a different thing and try a lot of different things. So, all right, Darren, so look at that. Okay, question. This is from Fandangly. He said, could I ask you how to get into map editing, and how would you recommend someone get into it now that it's much more complex than it used to be and most of the tools are in-house?
I mean, there are a lot of off-the-shelf editors that are out there that you can mess around with. Unreal Editor. The way I got involved is I actually went to school for it, went to the Art Institute, and after that, this is actually my first job outside of the industry. I've been with ArenaNet for a little over 10 years now. So I've been helping with every single version of Guild Wars out there, which has been cool. Really cool to see evolution of that.
One thing too is like, just because like learning how a specific tool works is not the like art of making maps. It is in like understanding what makes good maps, and like that's what makes our good map artists good. And so, if you really want to get into it, like first of all, it's sort of a fallacy. Actually, a lot of games use like Unreal or other pretty generic editors. But even if they don't, like knowing how to use those is very, very important. And understanding like how, like iterating with those editors and learning what makes good map decisions is really more important than how to use a specific map editor. Yeah,
those skills, or that you want to focus on the skills that are going to carry over, because it's at the end of the day, the map editor is a tool for you to use. You want to understand the concepts behind that tool. What's a good map layout? Because ultimately that's going to be what people are going to play on.
Right.
So.
You know, it's like saying, oh, if you need to know how to multiply, do you use calculator or Excel? Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Obviously, a simpler example. But one other question. So, PieBringer 619. Yes, we would like some pie. Is it easier to make a new map editor or to use already existing map editors? It's kind of, the answer is probably both. 90% of the time, it's probably easier to use existing stuff, but you know, a lot depends on the product you're building. This game development is very complicated. For our purposes, we needed to do things with our game and our editor that are very different than other games do. We are trying to solve very different problems than they're trying to solve. As far as, you know, there aren't a lot of the, you know, giant MMO games and ones that are trying to do certain specific things. So it's a little bit different. You know, you gain a lot of benefit from just using something. It has a lot less, you know, initial problems. It just works right off the shelf. Like, people can come in and use it if they've used it on another project before. Yeah. But our map editor, which is, you know, startingly called Map Edit, has a lot of really good things that, you know, are really, really important for Guild Wars 2 or for the type of games we are making. And that is why we do that, especially now that we actually have it and can maintain and support it. But, you know, certainly, like, as a small company or starting on your own or starting from scratch, like, existing map editor is a very, very useful way to go.
Yeah. So also prepared another little video here. This is showing kind of just some of the things we can do with our environment tool set that we have for changing things. So you can see we can adjust the shadow angle. We're able to just do a lot of cool things that just will change the look and feel of the map. Here.
Yeah, and this is sort of plays right into those questions, because you get a sense, like, you're changing clouds, like all the things that matter to an MMO and to, like, a place feeling like a real world are things that, like, we are really very easily capable of changing in our editor, and that's one of the reasons why we use that. So
yeah, it's really nice when we have a bug in our editor or something, just to walk down and talk to the engine team and be like, hey, this isn't working, and the response time for the game getting it fixed is amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now I'm messing around here with our skybox. We actually have some handmade skyboxes that we can swap in and out. Before I was messing around with the haze. So you can see just changing the haze in the skybox can really just change the feel of the map. We also can control our cloud plane here, move it up and down, just to get just a lot of variety to the look and feel for the map.
Yeah, on Forest, for instance. Like, you know, we brought those clouds that, like, fog in, and, like, we use that cloud plane really well there.
Yeah, this is we have cards that we can play around with, like 2D cards we can move around. So that's what I'm doing for the sun right here, and get some cool God rays going on.
Well, oh, here you
go. Okay.
How long it takes to integrate some? All right, so I'm not pronouncing your name. It's all right. I think I'm pronouncing this correctly. Simstorm Korgiak. I think that was actually pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
that was pretty good.
How long it takes to integrate some map mechanics so that they properly interact with players? That is a very good question, and it depends a lot on the mechanic. The jump pads, like I said, we added them to other maps, but all the fine-tuning of, like, making them feel good and making them work took a long time, and all that time was spent on this Skyhammer map.
That actually leads in really good with our next slide here.
Oh, convenient. Yeah. So, and we'll talk a little about, like, just all that stuff. It depends. You know, it depends a lot. Like the channeling, like the communing, there was a lot of back and forth on as far as, like, how long, if you look at Temple, how long the commune should be. There was a lot of back and forth of, like, oh, it should be 3 seconds. Okay, no, make it 2. No, make it 5, 7, 3, back to 5. And there's a lot of, that's actually a lot of play testing that happens there. Sometimes there's just a lot of actual mechanical design work, but a lot of time it's a lot of just play testing.
Yeah, a lot of play testing.
So you figure out what makes it feel right, because there's a lot of just trying things and just iterating. So anyway.
So what we have right here, this is our navigation mesh that we generate in our maps, and this really informs how the AI behaves in the map, how skills behave. I can let John talk a little bit about the nav mesh, because it really affects the designers a lot.
Yeah. So, like, combat movies like Savage Leaps and ground targets, they all use this to determine where the ground target, you know, I don't know what we call it, decal, like goes, you know, what you can jump over, where you can land, where you get stuck on things. And so like the little corners, I don't know if I can use like the arrow, like, you know, this little corner here, like the first time this map existed, like we probably got caught like running around this 40 times until Darren kind of got it just right, where you're like, okay, now like the flow up these stairs. Again, like I lost the mouse, but the flow up these stairs and then like up these stairs and over to the B point, and how that like leads right into the jump pad. Like there's a lot that goes into the laying out of this, where you can move on the map.
Yeah, and a lot goes into just the collision. So all of our collision for each of our 3D model props that we bring into the game is actually is authored on the actual prop. So when we're bringing in, there's a lot of fine tuning for our collision. To get that smoothed out so players don't get snagged. And
whether or not like arrows can go over certain lips, like you're up on a ridge and then there's a certain size lip on there, and whether or not when the arrows you shoot them, like can they go over? Can ones coming up go up? Like this is a world v world thing for map creation, but Darren and I actually worked on this specific thing a little bit of like shooting on and off the world v world walls was like weeks of like fine tuning the size of the lips and the angles of the collision on those walls. So
back and forth on that a lot.
Yeah. All right, one more question. From Boom Goes Dynamite. As a developer, do you actually play GW2 on free times, or playing it at work is enough gaming for a day? I'm a gamer who works with gaming devs, so this makes me curious. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people, I think like lots of us love the game enough that we'd love to play it more than we do, and we play it when we do find the time, and some of us are just busier off work than others. But you know, I think pretty much everyone has a passion for the game that makes them want to play it. It's just a matter of how much time they can dedicate to that. We actually spend probably much less time than we'd like to playing it here, certainly, and at home as well. But you know, as much as we can is probably the answer.
Yeah, I mean, we actually do have a whole day dedicated when we have new content ship, whole day where we sit down, we play the game.
Yeah, I'm sure some of you notice that like when there's a release day, there's a lot more of those like little red ANET bubbles next to people. It's because we like to take that day to play the new content live with people, like feel like we're experiencing it, seeing what things are working and what things are not, and it gives us, you know, basically, especially right now, every 2 weeks a chance to get in there and do that, and that's pretty important. And everyone in the company is doing that for, you know, almost a whole day that day. So
yeah. All right, let's see what we got next here. All right. And so there we have it. So this is a screenshot from what Skyhammer currently looks like in game today. So we took you all the way up through kind of the design and the art process. There's a ton of other people that also touch the map as well. We've got our audio team that does all the sound effects. We've got our UI team that are creating new UI elements as needed, and doing the icons for each of the points.
Like some of these really specific, like one-off, as Darren called them, props, like the Skyhammer. Like with a thing that's that complicated and that animated, there's generally like a person that goes to the effects for the Skyhammer cannon, like both the like beam that comes down and the explosion is like that goes to the effects team. There are tons of designers that touch it as well. There's like text that needs to get written, voice that needs to get written and then sent and recorded. And the text then goes through writers to make sure it's not crazy, because not all designers are the greatest writers in the world. And then from those writers, it goes to editing. And so there's so many pieces, you know, like at the end of the day, like this map, like, Darren built this map, but a lot of people, we don't gather, you know, we don't say how many people worked on this. Like it's as many people as it took to support this.
I mean, we're getting a lot of feedback from the design leads and other people in-house that are playing the game and playing the map and giving us feedback on it as well. So there's a lot of people in the company that actually have a hand in the creation of this map. A cool tidbit, about the VO, since John mentioned that. So the voice of the Asura announcer, the Asura coming over the loudspeaker in that map, is actually Troy Baker, our very own Logan Thackeray, and he's kind of the big time voice talent out there right now. But he did an amazing job. I love his voice on that. Okay,
All right.
So we got another one. Is that another question?
What's that? What's your question?
Is that
Ruby?
Oh, is it? Oh.
Oh, you guys want us to talk about that. Lots of people ask about this. Why, if this map is so good, it took so much work to do, why is it not in team queue? And a lot of people say, why is it in solo queue? And I hate this map, and I like this map. To be honest, it's sort of, I mean, I don't want to say, it's a calculated decision about whether or not we wanted to make this in team queue, but without making a bunch of other PvP design people angry, I will say that the whole concept of what goes in team queue and what goes in solo queue, like, we need to rework how that works, and there are projects in hand that are going to kind of start to solve that problem, but we are not going to talk about them now because I'm not going to spoil the person who spoils them on a random live stream. Sorry.
All right, so we also wanted to show you some cool stuff. We wanted to show you some of a couple of our alternate prototypes that we worked on. So like I said, while we are working on these maps, we are making a ton of other prototypes to mess around with. I mean, we've made dozens of prototype maps since we shipped Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
And so far we've narrowed it down to those 3 that we shipped. So this was another early Asura themed one that we were working on. This is before we had decided that Canon was going to be the final one. We just decided that we were going to play around with another Asura theme map. We generally try to do a new theme for each map, so there's not a lot of overlap.
Yep.
Another one here is we're going with a ruins with Sylvari kind of theme going on there, kind of some castle ruins.
Yeah, this one had some, like, traps and, you know, you can, I'm pointing, but you guys can't see what I'm pointing at. This was like a swinging log traps and like a bunch of whole kind of like this, a pressure plate and stuff that had some kind of, I would call them like prisoner's dilemma kind of choices that you were making. Like, do I want to go in there and get the thing, or do I want to like let someone else go in there and then step on the platform and crush them?
And then last one we'll show you here. This was we were working on a Char arena that we were working on. And again, these are all prototypes that ultimately we weren't happy enough to take all the way through. That's not to say you like with Canon, how we kept on coming back to it. So like I say, we might we might revisit these maps at a future date, but these are maps that didn't quite make it in the game.
Yeah.
So and then as a special treat, you want to show them some of the stuff we're working on now? All right.
Sure, why not?
All right. So
all right.
we're working on new game modes right now.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things is for our game, like the conquest and cap points, like they work really well. They drive people to locations, but they also split people, so we don't get we don't force these big 5v5 fights. But we also don't force. We kind of force action with them, and there's a lot of skills that take advantage of this kind of stuff. Ground targeted AOE's that you can kind of cover cap points with, and a lot of flanking stuff. But there is a point of like diminishing returns to adding the same maps to the same game mode, and that's kind of a point that we have almost certainly reached. And so we are working on this. So, this is a prototype. Darren talked about gray box. You can see these are definitely gray box props. I'm sure, like, you guys are all speculating what this map is. I think the internal name for this map is Stronghold.
No, this is Concave.
Oh, sorry, this is Concave. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a bunch of new ones. They definitely, cap points are a tool. They're in our tool set. They're a thing we can use. They feature a lot of good positional stuff, but these maps are not going to be driven by cap points. They're not going to be 3 cap points and you hold them and score takes up. They're definitely going to be different. This one is, which one is this again?
This is Encampment?
Oh, this is Encampment, yes. So yeah, we're just going to, spoil them sort of by giving you names, but not overly spoil them. Yeah, this is the Encampment map. You can see like this really fancy camp here. And, just trying to get a lot of more flanking gameplay as well, where players are going to spread out and then take back paths and cut back and forth. That's the kind of gameplay we really like. So,
this one is called Arena.
Oh yeah, this is Arena.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that could possibly be used for, but the internal name is Arena.
This is the Stronghold
Yeah,
map.
this is Stronghold. Spoiler, we played this the other day. So
Yeah.
these things are definitely starting to get some scripting in them. A lot of fun the first playthrough. I think there's a second one coming up maybe
this
in
afternoon.
2 hours or
Yeah.
so. Sorry, y'all, but
Yeah.
as soon as it's awesome, we will kind of get some of these out there because there's definitely a lot of potential here. So,
Yeah, and then final one, we have one called Castle.
Oh, yeah, Castle. Yeah. And
Leave it at that.
yeah, should we leave it there?
Leave it at that. And so we had a couple of questions from the forums that people had posted up earlier
Oh,
that we
yeah.
kind of wanted to.
Darren printed these out for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to, again, try and pronounce these names correctly. Dimos tell Aaron, any plans to release a custom map editor so we can build our own SPVP maps?
So short answer is no. We don't have any current plans for releasing our
Yeah,
own
and I
custom
think
editors.
one of the slightly less short answer, but still pretty short, is this internal editor is really good for us. It does all the things we need, but one of the things about internal editors is they're internal and they're very esoteric. And whenever a game releases an editor, they have put like an enormous amount of work into making that a release product. And the amount of work that it would take us to take our editor and make it into a release editor is beyond the scope of...
It'd be like shipping a game.
Yeah, at this point,
Yeah.
I think it would. So, next question. Again, I think I'm pronouncing this correctly. Let me spell it first. R-O-M-E-K. I think it's Rome-K. Or maybe Romek. Anyway, how many people work on a map?
We already kind of answered this a little before.
We did.
Like I said, I mean, for the actual map itself, usually it's for maps this small, it'll be one environment artist. But like I said, like you're saying before, there's a ton of other people that touch these maps.
And there's generally one designer that does the scripting. That does not mean like there's a person who just sits around full-time scripting these maps. It's a thing that a person does as part of their job. But and it's different people sometimes. In fact, I think a bunch of the maps have all been done by different people.
Yeah.
So, but generally there's 20 to 50 other people whose work gets put into these things.
Yeah.
So. All right, Tutos, how do teleport skills influence the design of the map? Do you build the map with different possible teleport spots in mind?
Well, thinking about, I mean, when you're designing a map, when you're laying it out, you got to think about all the skills that we have.
Yes.
So that is one puzzle piece that goes into when we're thinking about laying out a map. We definitely do think about that. That's not to say sometimes there's surprises, happy surprises, some not so happy surprises.
So yeah, I mean, the very first map, really laid the foundation for this, which is Kylo, right? Of like the teleport up to the bridges, where you can and cannot savage leap, jump distances, savage leap with swiftness, what you can do to chill people, to cut them off from places. So all that stuff is absolutely, longbow range, everything. We hit is really, really important when laying out a map. There's so much combat detail that goes into that. All right, another one. It's THEDENOFSIN. I'm pretty sure it's The Denovs in. Anyway, was the team that designed Skyhammer and/or Spirit Watch the same team that designed Foefire or Niflwell?
Yes, actually all four of those maps I worked on in this fashion. So I did the art pass for Foefire, and I did the layout and design for Niffle, and then I did the layout and design for Skyhammer and Spirit Watch as well.
Yeah.
We had some different designers for that.
And there's different designers that actually maybe build it, but the same designers are in all those meetings. That fancy meeting picture where you saw some people standing and some people sitting and some people drawing on a whiteboard. All those people, and more are kind of involved. It's always sort of the same people. So, yeah. All right, and this one, I'm going to spell it for you guys again. TRANASSA. That's, I believe, Trankitna. Do you take inspiration from other games when you create a new PvP map?
Yes.
No. Oh,
yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely, but I'll let Darren answer this.
I mean, I play a lot of games, and so I'm constantly looking through games. I'll go look through old school Quake games. I actually reinstalled Quake when I started to work on Dojo to get some inspiration for that. But a lot of inspiration can come from crazy places too. I mean, I'll be driving my car down from the street, see a building, and be like, oh, that would make a really cool PvP map. That'd be a really cool place to fight someone. Or be on a hike and be like, oh, the way this path is laid out would be really cool. It'd be really cool, like have ambushes coming from here. So just inspiration can come from all over the place.
Right. Darren is often looking around, thinking about like where he could fight people.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and not too many days ever go by where I'm not like, Darren, we should make a map that's like Badlands in TF2, like because I love all like the crisscrossing and flanking that we get out of that map. There's lots of stuff though, lots of inspiration from not just games, but everywhere. Yeah, I mean, lots of excitement, I guess, you guys. We heard about the new game modes.
Glad to hear it.
Be patient, but we're glad because we are excited about them too. We did need, those things are going to require more UI polish. They're going to require, solving lots of problems. But at the end of the day, like it's definitely a thing that is happening. Yeah. There's almost no question that's happening at this point. It's just a matter of getting it to a point where we feel like it's good enough for you guys to play it and not complain about it.
Yeah, getting it where we're happy internally with it is going to be really important.
So,
all right,
cool. Do you want to take it? Do you have any more good questions for us? Right. Really? Come on. We'll take another question. We'll take one more really good question. What do you got?
Anything?
Nothing. Okay. Oh, we're gonna get it.
All right.
Okay, this is the question we took. Any input on new upcoming PvP rewards? Okay. Well, just PvP rewards are going to start changing soon. Sooner than not as soon as you could possibly imagine, but almost as soon as you could possibly imagine that we would release some changes is when they're going to be. And then they will continue. That will be like kind of just if they'll be phased. So, piece by piece. I believe there's a blog post. Am I right, Ruby? There's a blog post. Anyway, I believe there's a blog post coming soon as well. So that should help. All right. Take us home, Darren.
All right, so just wanted to say thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Really appreciate it. It was really cool to show you guys just how we go about making a map on our PvP team. So I just want to do a quick update. The Fractured update comes to GW2 next Tuesday, and we're going to have a live preview on Monday the 25th on this very channel at noon Pacific time. So go ahead and click the little heart to like this channel, and don't miss Monday's live stream preview. So again, thanks for coming to this.
Yep. All right. Signing off.